I'm Alex and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is a place where I talk about what I've been knitting and sewing each month, and I'm going to start today by letting you know what I'm wearing in case you're wondering if I made it. I did. This is the Mandy Boat tee, which I believe is a free pattern. I'm going to put links to everything that I talk about today, all the patterns and yarns will be in the show notes, and you can find those by clicking the description box just below this video. There'll be a link that will take you over to the blog where I've got all the show notes, or you can sign up to the email where you get the show notes straight to your email. So anytime a video goes live, I let everybody on that YouTube list know that a new video is up, and I put links to everything that I talk about so you can see what's going to be in the video before you've even clicked over to YouTube. So if that's something you're interested in, you'll find links to those below. But yeah, this is a top that I made quite some time ago. I wear it loads. I love this shape. It's super comfortable. It was a really quick sew. I think the only mods I made were maybe to shorten it. I think maybe I took about 2.5 inches off. I'll be sure to put the modifications that I made in the show notes as well. But yeah, just a really nice simple sew, and I used a lovely jersey from Mizzen Textiles on Berwick Street in London, which they had a really great selection of colours. I love this really warm kind of terracotta shade. It's one of my favourite colours to wear. So yeah, really happy with how that turned out, and lovely to be able to wear it today. It's a beautiful summer, well, I said summer day. It's a beautiful spring day. It feels like summer. We're kind of having a mini spring. I don't know, we've had like a week of really lovely weather. I think yesterday was about 20 degrees, so it's really nice for this time of year. And yeah, it's got me thinking about what I want to be making for summer. So I think that's where I've got summer on the brain. I've been thinking about what's to come, because obviously when you're making, you have to think quite far ahead in advance if you want to be wearing it for the right season. So I have been thinking about spring, summer, and I really want to do a couple of t-shirts. So I've also picked up a project that I had been working on. So I'll show you, I've got my Han sweater, and she's sitting in this spring project bag. And if you're new here, I design my own fabrics, I screen print them, everything's all on organic fabrics, and I make project bags and accessories for knitters. So that might be something you're interested in. There's always a link to the shop below my videos. But yeah, this is a sweater that I started quite some time ago and I put down over the winter months, but it seemed like the right time to pick it up as I was sort of really feeling like wearing these kind of things again. I'm not even sure if I'll finish it this year. You can probably tell it's very lightweight. It's actually a lace weight. So this is West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite, which is, I think it's a merino and silk blend. It has a lovely, beautiful drape. But it's very, very fine. It had a lot of ribbing to start with, and the whole body is textured, so it's not just straight stockinette either. So this is a project that I'm just taking my time with. I mentioned when I shared this last time that I'm not racing to the finish with this. It's not so much about the finished piece, which although I do really want to wear it, I feel like I would just burn myself out if I was really trying to work on this to get it finished for a specific deadline. So I'm just taking my time with it, working on it when I feel like it, and if it takes until next summer, that would be perfectly fine with me. But with any luck, I will be wearing it this year. I love this colour. I think the colour is called Florence. I don't have the ball band in here. But yeah, I'll double check that and make sure that I leave that link below. There's only quite a small colour palette. There's maybe 10 shades, I think, in that yarn. So it'll be pretty easy for you to find if you look up West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite. So carrying on from like spring, summer thoughts and plans, I went back to my mood board and made some changes. So this is the Moonset Tee by Ozetta, which I'm considering making, and I've got this Libby Johnson Urchin Tee as well. So those are two bits that I'm planning on making this year, and I will I'll show you my swatches. So this is another one of my bags. This is the Spring Bees bag, which is one of my new fabrics that are in the shop at the moment. And inside I've got the yarn, which is the yarn that Libby used. This is DMC Natural Linen, and it's knitting up really nicely, but I'm not sure it's the fabric that I want. So this is how it looks. I've knit this on 3.5mm needles, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of got this, I don't know how to describe it. I'm using a different, I'm actually filming on my phone today because I recorded the whole video on my camera and it lost the halfway through the footage cutout. When I tried to record it kept stalling, so trying this on my phone, so I'm not sure if it will pick up sort of the subtle variances, but when I'm looking at it I can see it's got this kind of slubby texture with slightly thick and thin look to it and lighter patches. And if I share the other fabric that I've swatched with, hopefully you'll be able to see this is a much more even texture, whereas this almost has like a watercolour appearance, I think. This is the Blacker Yarns, I think they call it Lioness, comes in a DK and a fingering. This is the fingering weight, and it just has a more even texture. It's a 50% Corriedale wool, 50% linen. So it does have that linen content like the DMC. I don't know if I mentioned the content of the DMC. It's, let's have a look. Linen, viscose and cotton. So that's what the ball band looks like. And yeah, I'm not sure how those will sort of differ in wearing. They feel quite comparable at the moment. This yarn from the DMC looks much thinner. It looks really, really fine. But yeah, I feel like the actual feel of the garments doesn't feel too different. They both have quite a crisp linen. And yeah, I'm just undecided because I really do like the photos that Libby took with it. It's just when I see it up close, I'm not sure if it is the look that I want. So I actually have another contender. I ordered some yarn this week. My pheasant pullover sadly had an accident and I ripped the hem. Really, really sad about that, but I know I can fix it, especially as it's the hem. I'll be able to rip back a few rows, re-knit and bind off, but I didn't have enough leftovers to do that. I had really cut it fine when knitting that sweater. So anyway, to cut a long story short, when I was on the website, I was looking at what other yarns they had for spring summer knits, and they had a really interesting yarn from West Yorkshire Spinners. I think it was called Essentials, and it was basically a lyocell blend, which it came from some sort of sustainable wood sources, which has sounded really interesting. Let me pull up actually, because I did take some notes from my own. Yeah, oh, it was called Elements. Yeah, I took a little screenshot of it. It basically said, Elements is an innovative blend of Tencel, lyocell and the finest Falkland merino wool. Sorry, the finest Falkland wool. Expertly spun to create a sustainable, lightweight and lustrous yarn that's perfect for spring-summer projects. So that did sound like what I was looking for. And it says it's harvested from sustainably managed wood sources. Tencel lyocell is certified as biodegradable and compostable, making this yarn revertible back to nature. So yeah, it sounded really interesting. I'm always looking for more sustainable yarns, and it was a really great price point. It was about £4 for 50 grams, so I was interested to try that because it just sounded so great. So I've ordered that in white, and we'll have to see. I think it will arrive today, so I might get to do some swatching over the weekend. But those are what I have in mind. The Ozetta tee, I think I might use the 4-ply version of that West Yorkshire Spinners yarn that I used for Han that I just showed you. They have a slightly heavier weight. The original is using Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, and yeah, I haven't used Pure Silk before, but I thought this West Yorkshire Spinners is at 50-50. You get a lot of the nice qualities you have with silk, but I like it has a little bit of wool content, and I really like how that's knitting up in the hand. I think it would work really nicely in a 4-ply for the Ozetta, which has a slightly more sort of like sporty collar. I think it would just look really nice and very even, lightweight fabric. So I'm really excited to get that yarn and try that out and add some more swatches to my projects. I think the next thing I'll catch you up on is my cinder. So I've been working on this for quite a while, and it's in one of my top handle totes. it is sort of outgrowing this bag, but I just can't stop using it because it's something new and I'm really enjoying it. I don't have this Moon and Stars fabric, but it is available in the Spring Bees. So if this does look like a style that you'd be interested in using as well, they are coming, but it's going to be in the Spring Bees fabric. So in here I've got the Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, and I'm not sure if this is all going to be shown backwards, hopefully not when I come back to look. If it is, apologies, and hopefully next time I'll be back on my usual camera, my usual setup. But basically I'm using the grey for the background, and I've got this gorgeous, lovely, kind of rusty, fiery orange and this deep purple. It's very like deep, almost navy purple, and I think it's coming out really nicely. So I've been knitting this for quite a while. When I showed you last time, I think I'd separated for the sleeves and maybe had a couple of inches. So now I've done about 9 inches of body. As you can see, it's kind of coming down to my jeans, so not too much more to go on the body of that, but yeah, it's still quite a lot of knitting, so I'm just slowly ploughing away on that. And the only other thing I've got to say is that I did mention on Instagram that I was going to use this project to try and teach myself to knit and read at the same time, and I want to report back that I have cracked it. I still don't understand how you're able to do it. It's like your mind does take over, but this was a great project to start with because the yarn is very grippy. It's a Shetland wool and it's not slipping off the needles too easily. And if I was to drop a stitch, which miraculously I haven't, I've knit so many rows, haven't dropped a stitch yet. But if I did, it wouldn't be too hard to just whip back and pick that up because, yeah, as I say, it's not the kind of yarn that's going to unravel really, really easily. If I did drop a stitch, I think it would just sit there quite nice and open, so I'd be able to pick that up the next round. But yeah, that hasn't happened, and I'm really pleased to kind of have unlocked that skill. I love reading, and it just feels so good to be doing the two at the same time. I read a book recently by, I think it was John Cleves. It was just a really, really short little book that I found in the library about creativity. And in it, they kind of talk about your subconscious mind and how your mind can work. They're talking it from a creativity sense, that your mind's sort of working on problems and creative problem solving, even when we're not thinking about it. And it kind of explains that's how, you know, when you have something on the tip of your tongue and you just can't remember a name or something you're trying to think of and it's there, and then you think, oh, can't remember, and then 2 hours later it just pops into your head without even thinking about it. And it's sort of explaining that your brain is working away on these things even when we're not consciously thinking of it. It is able to do things sort of intuitively, I suppose. And it got me thinking that, I mean, I'm always connecting things like this back to knitting, but I was like, I think that is how we're able to knit and read. I've heard people being able to do this, and it kind of gave me the confidence to give it a try. And I actually found it easier to read than when I was trying to do it watching TV or watching film, because I think when I was watching something, I could almost feel my brain thinking about what I was doing while I was watching it. So it was like I was doing both at the same time. So although I was concentrating on the screen, like a tiny part of my brain was thinking, am I going through the stitch right? It was like I could almost visualize what I was doing while I was doing it. Whereas when I was reading, I think my mind had to be so present, taking the words and processing it. There wasn't any space for me to be picturing what I was doing or trying to think about what I was doing. I literally was on autopilot, just going through the stitches. So yeah, it seems really incredulous to me that you can do this, because I feel like you are, it's not just the motion of doing it. I always think I thought it was the motion of knitting that you could just repeat. It was like muscle memory, but I think it is more than that. Somehow we are really analysing how that needle is going through each stitch, because when you are looking at your knitting, you do see there is those little, I don't know how to explain it, but you are kind of making decisions as to how you're putting that needle through, where it's going, has it caught through the stitch, are you wrapping it round in the right place. It's not enough just to be able to go through the motions, you need to actually do it right as well. So yeah, as you can tell, very surprised that I can do it. Don't really understand how I'm able to do it, but if it's something you've been thinking about, I would really urge you to have a go with a project like that where you've got a really grippy yarn that's not going to unravel too easily if there is a mistake made, and yeah, just give it a try. So that's an achievement unlocked this week. What else have I got to show you? I think I've got socks, so let's chat about socks. I finished a pair of At the Vicarage socks by This Handmade Life, which I showed you before. Maybe I had one done last time. And these are a pair of shorty socks, and I just think, I don't know why I waited so long to do shorties. I've often knit mine with my socks with quite a small leg. I like to have shorter socks, but for some reason I really thought shorties weren't going to be a good fit. I thought they wouldn't be grippy around the ankle. I thought they'd be a little bit sloppy for some reason, but I was wrong. I don't know why I thought this, because if you understand knitting, if you've got the right circumference and a really nice stretchy fabric with the ribbing, it should sort of don't know what the word is, but yeah, it should kind of be nice and tight around the ankle. And if it wasn't, I suppose you could go down. But so many people have knit these and love them, so I don't know why I thought it would be different. But really pleased with how these came out. They've got the heel that Olivia uses in some of her patterns, which I really love. A very simple, very beginner friendly heel. If you've been intimidated to try socks, I think this would be a really good one. The heel is not at all fiddly. It's a very, very simple way of getting a heel turn. So I would try that. And I, in fact, the second that I cast these off, I should tell you that this is Cascade Heritage Solids in the Chanterelle colourway. As soon as I cast those off, got in another one of my Spring Bees bags, an exact copy, but in the grey. So this is the Cascade Heritage grey, and it's a very soft grey. I feel like it leans a little bit towards blue, but yeah, not very exciting to shade the same socks. I hope you don't mind that I often repeat patterns and knit the same thing. That's just genuinely how I am as a person, how I am as a knitter, and I don't feel like I want to do things just so I can show something different on the podcast. So I hope you don't mind that I show things that I knit more than once, but I really love this pattern, and I think it was exactly what I needed at this time, which is why I cast on a new one straight away. It's been a funny time, and I think my knitting, I've wanted to do things that are easy, still relaxing for my mind, but keep my mind occupied as well. I think it's really important when there's difficult things going on in the world, when there's sort of things that are really sad and upsetting to look at, that I don't necessarily turn away and bury my head in the sand. I think it's really important to, even when things are difficult to process or understand, I think it is important to just be aware of what's going on in the world, but at the same time there are times when I think I need to clear my mind. So like say in the evening before bed, for that hour before, I found it really helpful to work on something like this where it's relaxing knitting time, because I can find the stitch is very easy, it's not fiddly, it's very, very easy to knit, but at the same time there's enough of a pattern that I do need to focus on it, so that clears my mind. Whereas if I'm knitting stockinette, I find my mind wanders. You can think about anything when you're knitting stockinette because you're just going through the motions. But when I have a pattern to follow, and you're sort of counting, so I might be like 1, 2, 3, 4, do a yarn over, 1, 2, do an increase, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, you're doing those kind of repetitive sort of counting and sort of following of a pattern in your mind. So I find that is what I need to clear my mind, so I'm not going to bed at the end of the day with the weight of the world on my shoulders and my mind sort of playing out all the worst case scenarios. So I found that really helpful, and that was one of the reasons why I just, as soon as I cast those up, I didn't even think about it. I just knew that this was what I needed at the time, and I cast on another pair. So really enjoying those, and yeah, perhaps if you're a sock knitter, you might want to try those. I've seen that Olivia's got another brand new shorty sock pattern, so I'm sure I'm going to have to try that in the next few weeks. But right now, this is just what I wanted to knit, and it kind of leads me on to talk a little bit more about the socks, because I think it was Selma asked in my last video how the Cascade yarn holds up, because I've mentioned several times that I actually bought a lot of this yarn so I could do a video showing exactly how many skeins fit in each of my project bags. So I have a lot of this yarn and you've seen me use it loads, but I haven't actually talked about how it's been wearing, and it's because there's not really much to report apart from it wears really well. So it's a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon blend, and I've actually got some socks here that I have worn and worn and worn. So this is another At the Vicarage pair, and this is, I think, Cozy Autumn socks. They're both patterns that Olivia from This Handmade Life has released. And as you can see, yeah, these have been worn for 3 or 4 months and they look like they haven't. They actually look they don't look that different to these. And one of the things I have been doing is really taking better care of my socks. So I used to always have like the pair that had just come off the needles. They would be my most favourite, and I'd sort of fall out of love with the ones that were getting a little bit worn, a little bit tatty looking, because as soon as you've worn your socks a bit, and even when you wash them, they always look a little bit, they don't exactly get felted because these kind of superwash yarns don't felt, but they just look all fluffy on the bottom, and yeah, they're just kind of misshapen and they don't look as nice and they don't feel as nice as when they first came out the blocking bowl. But this has changed for me. So now I've been taking the time to wash them, lay them flat to dry, try and get them in a nice shape when I'm laying them out. And then when they're dry, I'm using my fabric shaver. And I've talked about caring for minutes before. So this is the Philips, I'm not sure what model it is, but it's a Philips fabric shaver. And I have a comb that I use as well, but I don't use this for my socks. This is great for really big pills, so I think a fabric comb is good. You know, under the arms, sometimes on a sweater, you might get loads of like clumps of pills. That's great for removing those. And yeah, I use these on the smaller areas. So this has just, I feel like this is what has made my socks look like brand new. I think going over areas where you've got cabling or lace, it just really makes the patterns pop again. I don't think you realise that they do get a bit fluffy. And yeah, and the bottoms, I don't know, you can see some wear on the heel. I've got no holes, but I don't know if it's able to pick up that, but there is very slight wear, just looks a bit fluffy. The stitches maybe look a bit like they're ever so slightly felting together. They're just not so defined. And that's it. And if you've been scared to use these, I thought I'd show you really quickly. Obviously there's no pills to pick up on here, but it sort of draws in the pills, so somehow it's sucking in the fibres and then just cutting them off. But it's not going to kind of, I don't know, it's not going to drag your knitting in there. I think you can easily see how much pressure to apply. I'll very quickly, I don't want it to be too loud for you, so I'm just going to do a couple of seconds, and I'll probably reduce the sound when I'm going through the video later, but I'll show you how I use it and that it's not going to do any damage to the sock. Okay, so as you can see, I was just rubbing this over the surface of the sock, and yeah, it's something that's really, really simple. It seems scary because you're putting something with a blade near your knitting, but I just wanted to show you, so if anyone was nervous, you can see they're not that powerful. They're not, I don't know, it's not, I think it would be quite hard to do some serious damage to your knitting. You'd have to press very hard, and I think most of us could gauge ourselves. The first few times you use it, you're going to go really lightly, and you're just going to keep applying a little bit more pressure until you see you're applying enough pressure that those pills are getting sucked in and cut off. So I think it's quite easy, but you can see the first time you use it, you're not going to sort of put it on and suddenly, I think I envisioned that it was going to suck up my knitting and I'd end up with a big hole or something. But that has been a game changer for me, just going over the bottoms of my socks, going over these, and it really only takes a few minutes, and to be honest, it's just very satisfying. I don't think I would bother doing this if it felt like a chore, because I mean, who has time to spend over their socks? I've been wearing my socks for years, and it's only recently that I've started doing this bit because it makes me so happy to be able to pull out a pair of socks that looks as fresh as these, whereas before, my sort of previously worn hand knit socks, they all just looked a bit, they just looked worn. Even when I'd washed them, they just didn't bounce back quite like this. And seeing them so perfect really does make me happy, which is probably a bit sad, but it's true. That's how I feel about it. So for me, it's been worth, you know, just spending a little bit of time doing that. And as I say, it's very satisfying, so it doesn't feel like a chore. I'm not the kind of person, I don't iron my sheets and things like that. So yeah, I only do that kind of thing if I really feel like the benefit outweighs the effort, which it does for me. So if you're someone like that, you might want to try getting one of those and using it on your socks as well, because I definitely only felt that that was something that I would use on my sweaters, and yeah, it's brought my socks back to life. I've got another thing that I did want to chat to you about. I shared quite some time ago that I was thinking about making a quilt with my fabrics, and that's something that I've been slowly working on. So I've got 3 blocks to show you. So this is the first one. This is my fabric that I've screen printed. So I've printed on a white quilting weight cotton. I've got this deep kind of petrol blue and a sort of ivory, a warm white at the bottom. So that's one. I've got, this is number 2 and number 3. And I really like how this has turned out. I'm going to do about 6 blocks along the top to 8 blocks down. And I just think it shows so nicely having the dark blue. You can really see how crisp and perfect those centre points are. And it just really shows it, really highlights it. So I think when you're doing something as simple as this, which is squares, it's really important to take that time to get those little finishes and those points just right. And one of the ways that I'm able to do that is through pressing my seams in alternate ways. So yeah, you probably can see that on the back, but this seam is pressed to my right and this seam is pressed to my left. And when it comes to popping them together and sewing this seam and then pressing it open, they kind of butt up against each other. So rather than having your seams on top of each other and then pressing open, you've got them sort of right next to each other and you're pressing open. So they do, it just gives a neater finish, because I think you haven't got that bulk there, and they are able to really nestle up close, so you get that very tight corner point. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I'm really happy with how that's turning out. I'm eager to do some more sewing on that this weekend, and I'd love your feedback, because I really would like to offer this as some kind of kit maybe. And there's sort of 2 ways I could do it. I could either put together, I think you'd maybe call it a charm pack, where you get all the pre-cut squares to make your own quilt top, or I could do a full quilt kit where you would get the squares to do your quilt top, the binding, the batting, backing fabric. All you need to use is your own quilting ruler and your own thread to sew it together. So that's an option. I'm not sure if anyone's even interested in quilts. I'm not sure if that's something that anyone watching is interested in, but if it is, I'd be really interested to know whether you want something at a kind of lower, more easily accessible price point, where you could just get the fabric for the quilt top and then source your own bits for the backing and the binding and the batting that goes inside, or if you'd want to pay a bit more and have everything curated in the kit, so you could have basically all the bits that you'd need and open the box and kind of get started straight away and follow my pattern to make your own quilt. So yeah, I'd really be interested to know what, if you were purchasing a quilt, what you would pick over those 2 options. And yeah, let me know if that's something you're interested in, because I'm just doing this for myself. It was something that I've really wanted to do for quite some time, and yeah, I thought it would be great to get your feedback, because if it was something people were interested in, it would be really fun to offer quilts, especially over the summer months. I think a lot of people get into sewing over the summer. I'm a year-round knitter, you know this if you've been watching for a while, but a lot of people sort of ease off on the sewing, ease off on the knitting and jump full in to sewing over the summer months. So it would be a nice time to work on it as well, because then by the time you get to winter, you'd have a cosy quilt. It's the sort of size, I guess, you'd use like a lap quilt. It's not going to be a huge size, as I say. I've got 6 of these squares along the top, 8 down. so it would be enough to sit comfortably and cozy on the sofa, but it's not going to be like a huge quilt that you'd have the whole family under, if that makes sense. But I'll share more as I go through the process of putting this quilt together. It would be really nice if next time I had the quilt top done and yeah, was at least had my quilt all sandwiched together. I think that would be really nice. Another thing I've got to show you is another sewing bit. I've got, in one of my little Notion sacks, I've been working on a cross stitch project, and I've shown before that I quite often like having these little hoops just with a seasonal scene in, and this is a Samantha Purdy design, and I think these are really cute. I've sort of mashed up two of her, sorry, I think it's getting really blown out. I don't know how. Oh, I think you can maybe see it there. I think it's so sunny from the white, it's trying to, maybe if I put it over my face it will, no. Anyway, I feel like you can, I think I've maybe put a picture of this on my Instagram as well, so if it's not super clear from back here, it probably is. I always worry that I need to show things really close to the camera, and I don't think I always do, but it's a design where I have changed this part to get, I just wanted a very small piece, so I have done, the plant is sitting on this little bench, whereas in her pattern she has it like stairs that go up, so it has 3 plants and they're each on a step, whereas I thought I just wanted to keep it quite small, so I just turned this into a bench. I've changed the colours as well, so I'll give you a peek at the colour palette that I used. So these are the shades. I'll put the colour numbers down, but I mean, I just like to go through whatever I have in my stash and try and find colours that look like either an exact sort of copy of the pattern. If I want to try and get it exact, I will usually have something in my stash that's very, very similar. Or sometimes like this, I wanted it to have a really spring feel, so I like the idea of using the pink and the green in her outfit, so I did change that. But yeah, if you were interested in seeing what colours I've used, I've got this really cute needle minder as well. I love these, and they just magnetise, so you put your, yeah, you can just rest your needle on here, and yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch. I've had this for years. If I can find one, I'll link it below, but as I said, I've had that for years and years and years. That's my finished hoop. I haven't worked out how I want to finish it just yet, so I haven't cut off my fabric yet, but yeah, I'm just going to have that on display for the springtime. I think that's everything that I wanted to show you. Talked about my socks and my quilt. Yeah, lots to share today. I feel like this is definitely a video for curling up with a cup of tea and your knitting. Quite often I do a short video, but this looks like it's almost half an hour, so I hope it was nice to spend some time with me chatting about knitting and what I've been working on. I am going to carry on working on with my quilt. I'm definitely going to do a few more rows on my ham, and I'm eagerly awaiting the yarn to arrive so I can do another swatch for that Urchin t-shirt. So I've got lots to be getting on with this weekend, and I hope you do too. I'd love it if you'd let me know what you're working on, and if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe and like the video. If you hit the like button, it actually lets YouTube know that you enjoy this kind of video, and it's a really great way of finding other people that are doing something similar, so they'll know that there's other knitting creators out there who are doing something similar to me, and they'll recommend them as well. So that's another tip as well. It's a great way, if you actually like the videos, they are pretty good at then finding other videos of a similar nature, and I've definitely found a lot of people like that in my recommended feeds. So yeah, hope you have a great day, and I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.